We're in our cars every day to work, school, the shops, and most of the time we don't even think about getting there. Our minds switch to autopilot. But sometimes all it takes is a moment's distraction or a break in routine, and that autopilot can short circuit, leading to a child or pet being left behind in the car. And when it's hot, the temperature inside a vehicle can double in minutes with devastating consequences. It's not as uncommon as you might think. Here in WA, RAC Roadside Assistance rescued 585 children and pets from locked cars this year. And it's not just kids and animals. Some adults have been rescued too, and accidentally locking themselves inside their vehicle. To shed some light on why this happens and what's being done to prevent it, I'm joined by Professor Warren Mansell from Curtin University and RAC Roadside Patrol Mark Dring, who's seen these rescues firsthand. Well, thanks so much for joining us today, Warren and Mark. I think we've all had those situations where we've arrived somewhere in our car and thought, oh my gosh, how did we actually get there? And I just want you to just sort of look at the whole autopilot issue. What happens with the brain with that when that happens?
Well, the brain is all about automation. So people can't really remember how they learnt to drive, never mind what they're doing when they're driving. Those reactions we have when we're driving have got very instinctive. And that's basically the job of the brain, is to take stuff that we have to concentrate on and kind of think through and lay it down in these more automated parts of our minds. And we do that in everyday life as well. That's why we have machines that do things for us. We're constantly trying to work out how to make things more automatic. And that's why it's not just about driving the car. It can literally be the directions you take, the routines you have in and out of the car. They can become automatic as well. It makes them more efficient. It means you can have your mind on other things, which people often do. So it's just an everyday part of being human, really. It's
like riding your bike. I actually read something about that. So you learn to ride your bike once, and then pretty much your brain has worked it out, and you can get on a bike 10 years later and still know how to do it.
And what's amazing is some people think that you've learnt your behaviour, but actually if you look at someone riding a bike, they're constantly adjusting to keep balance. So what you're actually learning is how to control. And so there's some indications that we have these sort of control systems in our brain that do it, which means we're quite nimble and agile, even when we're not got our minds particularly on things. And that's why you see incredible performances in, art and gymnastics and what have you.
And it's not just the big things, like, we've just been talking about, driving a whole trip somewhere, but it can be little things. For instance, if you have a car key fob in your hand and you know that it's important, it's an everyday thing, you need it every day to actually get your car going, and yet even the little things like that, some people forget and they're locking themselves in the car. So what happens in the brain at that point?
Well, one answer to this is something called proactive interference. And what it means is that the habits and the routines that we have that we've been doing day to day, and that they've been largely the same experiences and landmarks that we're going through, they become particularly automated. And so if you add one little thing to that routine that's different from normal, you might miss it. You might just go back onto that old routine and miss the new thing, like what's in the car or whether you've got a certain item with you. So that's one explanation for how those things can be missed.
And then obviously, Mark, you are at the forefront and you are rescuing people, adults even, who are stuck in cars. I believe you've already rescued or helped 18 people get out of the car that have locked themselves in. Have people come up with the same sort of excuses, like why they have forgotten their fob or they haven't had their fob?
A lot of it is usually some of these auto-locking systems on cars and things like that. Particular models where if you unlock a car and then after a certain amount of time, if you don't initially open the driver's door, after like, say, 30 seconds or something, it'll lock the car again. And then next minute, you've either put the keys in the car or dropped the keys in the car with a child, and the car's locked itself, and then you're stuck outside, and what do I do now?
So what are some of the car lock-in situations that you've seen?
Yeah, it's typically children, pets that are locked in the cars. They're the common ones. Occasionally adults, yes. Fortunately for me, I haven't been to too many adults, probably about 2 in my 20 years career with the RAC. But it's, the children locked in car is quite a, as you can imagine, a harrowing experience for everybody involved, including patrol. So we do have robust procedures in place. The job gets dispatched to us, and the contact centre then call us just to make sure, how long is it going to take us to get there? Do we need a support patrol to go with us? Because, we're not infallible to these type of things. We're only human at the end of the day. So it's quite stressful to, like I say, everybody who's concerned. So, sometimes they'll give you the type of car that it is, the model, make, and you think, oh, that's going to be quite an easy one. No, I don't need a support patrol. I'm going to be in there within a few seconds. But if it's, a complicated car, sometimes you'll get a support patrol, and he's not necessarily going to help you with unlocking the car. He's probably going to control the member or, take them to one side. So try and reduce their stress to a certain degree.
How young are we talking? Like, how young are these kids or
babies.
children?
Yeah, children. Yeah, generally babies, because there's that, you can't really tell them, can you press that button or, press the remote or things like that. And with pets locked in cars, it's generally what I've seen is where the pet has inadvertently pressed the lock button on the center console or something
really?
like that. Yeah.
Okay.
And then you can't tell that pet, look, can you press that button again, please?
Yeah. Obviously, we're coming into summer as well now. Tell me about the heat in the car, because it's obviously different to the environment. It's like a cabin,
right.
hot
and it's
cabin,
not necessarily summer days. The car acts like a greenhouse. So you imagine it's glass all around, isn't it? So you can probably, within an hour, the interior of a car is probably going to increase about 20 degrees plus to what the outside of the vehicle is.
I think I've read some statistics that within 10 minutes on a hot day, it can go up 10 degrees just in 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's right. And you imagine a black interior, it's going to absorb that heat and heat up a lot quicker. So it's, what is it, 40 degrees that the human body starts to hit hypothermia. Yeah.
And children have less control over their temperature than humans do.
Yeah.
Dogs have less control unless they've got full hydration. And people I think can't quite imagine that scenario. We're so used to our living in air-conditioned environments.
Yeah, that's right.
And I was also talking to my wife about this, and we reflect on the fact we're both from England. We're not used to that kind of heat.
Right, yeah.
And so there's plenty of people migrating to Australia from less hot climates. I think here you've got a bit of an understanding that there's dangers from the sun and the heat. But I think also when you don't come from that background and you don't realise how hot things can get.
How rapidly it can heat up.
And it doesn't have to be a hot day either. The temperature still increases because of that greenhouse effect.
So what would have been the hottest inside a car that you've rescued somebody?
I guess one of the questions that our contact centre will ask the member is, how long has the child been in the car? Because if it's looking like it's going to be over a certain amount of time, we'll say, look, it's an emergency event. Yeah. We don't have emergency lights. We're not allowed to break the law, speed or anything like that. So we'll say, look, it's an emergency, call the fire brigade.
It's really hard to wrap, especially as a mother, it's really hard to wrap your head around how a child gets left in the car. What actually happens in the brain at that point?
I mean, part of this is actually some things that have changed in the environment. As far as I'm aware, car seats child car seats used to be in the front. Then because of airbags, they went into the back. From the physics of the moving vehicle, it's safer for the child to be facing away towards the back, but that means that you can't see the child's face from the front.
Right, yep.
So simply having a mirror there so that you can look in your rearview mirror and see the face of your child, have that perception that's there in your awareness, can make a lot of difference compared to just thinking, oh, I know the child's in there, having that in the back of your mind, but then you've gone on a journey and that's not necessarily going to stay in the back of your mind. Because
and if they're quiet, if they're sleeping, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think on modern vehicles now, one of the systems that are coming through now is a dedicated system analysing the back, telling the driver that there's a passenger in the back, and it's got various sensors measuring like breathing. There's a few algorithms in there that sense whether there's occupants in the back of the car. Like you say, if it's a baby asleep, you're not necessarily going to know.
And it's very understandable. The data I've looked at, 1 in 4 parents of children under 3 report forgetting their child was in the car. So it may have not led to something that needed the RAC or emergency, but that's 1 in 4 people.
Yeah, it's a lot.
What has happened to, and it potentially could have escalated.
Yeah, and that's called the forgotten baby syndrome. Is that correct? And it's also called something else. It's called fatal distraction.
Everything's on this sliding scale from people who forget and then they realise through to how long it takes, and it's more a matter of that the context and the situation that can make it a real issue for some person at a certain time and not another. But we're all vulnerable to it.
So what causes it though?
So what causes that happening is what we're talking about in terms of the brain making everything automatic. It goes to the back of your mind. There's these risk factors to it in terms of the fact that you can't see your child most of the time. Then you've got added factors that can come in to make things more challenging. So often young parents have difficulty with sleep, and so they're not slept as much as usual, and it's a stressful time anyway, and then you add to that other forms of stress. When you're stressed and worried, your brain tends to be less flexible. It tends to focus in on the thing that is at the heart of your worry, which could be not related necessarily to other things that are going on in your life and other everyday routines. So stress adds that factor of making it harder for us to kind of reflect and think about, what are all my goals today? What do I need to take care of? What do I need to attend to today?
Is sleep deprivation a big thing in the community? Is it,
Sleep deprivation, again, in the data I've looked at, 2/3 of parents of children 12 months and under report difficulties or disruptions in their sleep. The other thing is that there's 2 effects of sleep on concentration. The first is an acute effect. So the next day, if you've not slept one night, the next day you see noticeable differences already in the ability to concentrate and bring things to mind. So that's the immediate effect. And then you also have a secondary effect, which is that build-up of sleep deprivation, even if it's not losing a whole night's sleep, but that can build up over time, and that has another more slow-burning effect on people's ability to concentrate and notice things that are important in their environment.
And both of those issues, do they affect the short-term memory then?
They affect what you can hold in mind and what you bring to mind. So you've got a certain what's called a working memory capacity. So many things that you can juggle in your head. And
I read that was like 7 to 9 things.
Yeah, actually, that was about 20 years ago, the research.
Oh, is it more or is it less?
It's a lot less.
Okay.
What people realised is that in these studies when they did it on them, your brain uses all kinds of tricks to kind of make it look like you can think of more things at once than you can. It's actually more like 3 or 4 things that you can actually hold in your mind. So your conscious awareness is such a tiny proportion of everything that your brain does. And so you've got to somehow get all the bits into there to think, well, have I got my keys? You know, am I at work on time? You know, do I have to, you know, ring the babysitter or whatever? So you've got all those different things you're trying to control and balance. And the smaller that bandwidth of your working memory, the harder it is to make sure everything's in there and for one of those to slip. And like I say, if you've got currently under stress, you've got poor sleep, then that space narrows. What we do with the work that I've developed is a way of training people to have everyday conversations with one another that help the person who's talking about this juggling act to just kind of work through them and become a bit more aware of everything, so they don't forget certain things, so that they work through certain problems and start sorting them out for themselves. And all the listener needs to do is ask questions every so often, just curiously, like, oh, when are you going to do that? And how are you going to do that? And that's something that people can build into their everyday lives. Just 5 or 10 minutes talking to their partner, talking to their friends, who just listens and asks curious questions. It's like a filter for your brain, where you just kind of remind yourself what's important.
So people who are tired and stressed are more prone to leaving their kids and pets in the back of their car. Is that right?
Yeah, when that added problem of poor sleep and stress kind of accumulate, and we talked about how that can really take your attention away from things that are important. It's interesting, but another thing that can take attention away is actually that mantra of don't worry. You know, if you try not to think about possible things, bad things that might happen, that actually is what you need to do if you're thinking about your child left in the car. You need to actually have a kind of an imagination of what might happen in the future that you don't want to happen. But people often these days get told not to worry about things, or that worry is a bad thing. But if you're in control of the worry and you're imagining something that could happen, like the child or the animal overheating, that's actually effective because you know what to do, which is to take them out of the car. And that's what people do in high-risk jobs and high-risk sports. They have to think of the worst, and then they work out a coping strategy. They work out a way of dealing with the worst outcome.
So it's about the only time where you have to be negative.
No, you need to be negative about 50% of the time.
Okay.
Well, no, it's about 30%. They've done some research. They looked at what's the optimum level of positive and negative thinking in people. And it's about a 2-to-1 ratio of positive to negative thoughts. It's not, like think positively. The most adaptive ratio is, yes, there's more positive, but you have to have a sizable amount of your thoughts that are about unpleasant feelings, bad things happening, because you need that space to solve problems, to help people in distress, to deal with sadness and loss.
So we've talked about the forgotten baby syndrome. Is there also like a forgotten pet syndrome? Because clearly that's a big thing as well.
I don't think it's probably forgotten pets because I guess you've not got the same constraints as you have as a new parent, have you? You're probably not as fatigued and tired and things like that. I think with the pets, it's usually accidental. Possibly there's something in the background that's failed in the car, one of the security mechanisms or something like that. Or like I said before, where the pets accidentally pressed the lock button.
The console.
Yeah.
So I was a single mum and I picked up my son and my dog from my mum and dad's, and we got home. I got my son out. He was, 3 or 4 at the time. And it wasn't until I went to feed my dog that I went, where's my dog? And he was asleep. And so he was fine and it wasn't hot, but I felt so bad. Yeah. And it was just that trigger of having to feed him where I thought I do this every single day. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I can see how it can happen. You've said that stress and lack of sleep plays a big importance in this. And that's across the board, isn't it? And we've seen that with terrible things that have happened in terms of babies and children just left there for the day and the parent has, gone to work.
It's a cause of traumatisation in itself when it gets to that seriousness, and it's your brain naturally goes through and tries to think what could I have done? What have I done? Why did I do this? And I hope through talking this through, we both recognise, or we all recognise, how easy it is to happen, that it's often to do with a certain kind of coming together of certain challenges and contexts for a person. So it's not that they're a bad parent, it's that these circumstances will all come together in a way that they maybe couldn't have anticipated. But at the same time, there are things going forward that people can do to kind of to reduce those kind of events.
It's a kind of a paradox, really, isn't it? That the same technology that can sometimes, cause these issues can also help, because now there's some new technology which can help babies and children and animals being left in the car.
Yeah, like I touched on before, a lot of the manufacturers now coming up with systems that will monitor the back seats, the sensors and things like that. Obviously, they detect breathing, that type of thing, and obviously will alert you either with something on the dashboard, or even maybe sending you a message to your phone that there is an occupant in the car.
So that's like rear passenger alerts and child
that's
detection.
right. Yeah, that's right. And there some I think manufacturers are actually coming up with them so they can be retrofitted into older vehicles as well. I think Bosch spring to mind. They're one of the companies that are developing these systems that can be retrofitted into your older vehicle.
So currently, what kind of vehicles? Is it just the upper end vehicles that have these?
I think one of the biggest manufacturers at the moment using it is Toyota. They're using it on quite a few models of vehicle. I think from memory, the 300 series Land Cruiser down to the Yaris as well. It's probably stuff that's aimed at the family, Mm-hmm.
Do you think that kind of technology will become standard in all cars soon?
Yeah, I guess so. If it's a safety feature that's working, you can guarantee that AMCAP will say this needs to be implemented in all vehicles, to get that high star rating.
So they'll be like just as common as, say, airbags and
seatbelts.
That's
right. It'll be the next airbag seatbelt. That's correct.
So, Mark, there was that class action against BMW a few years back where their cars were a bit too good and they were like locking themselves, weren't they?
Yeah, that's correct.
So can you just explain about that?
Yeah, so what it was, I think it was the X5. I can't remember what year model it was, but it was had the automatic locking function in the car, and it was actually locking itself when it shouldn't lock itself, with people in the vehicle and things like that.
I'm just interested in your experience. What some of the most harrowing experiences that you've seen?
Yeah, I guess it's temperature related, and like I say, one of the first questions we'll ask when we get to the event is, how long has the child been in here? Because you can feel the temperature, you can see where the car is, is it in direct sunlight? If they say to you, look, the child's been in there 10 minutes or more, let's break the window, which we have the tools and things like that to smash a window. If it's a particularly difficult vehicle to get into, that is. And
obviously, like the parents or the driver, the carers, they're beside themselves.
In a lot of cases, yeah, definitely. And that's why we have that robust process in place, so that sometimes there's two patrols arrive at the same job. One is to take care of the parents, and the other patrol is to actually gain entry to the vehicle. Well, that would be really hard too, because as a parent or a carer, you'd just be wanting to be there. Yeah, that's trying to help. That's right. But like I say, if it came to it, if the contact centre, when they first take the call, they deem it is a emergency, they'll just go ahead and organise emergency services. Over your time going to these sorts of situations, is there one that's really stuck in your mind? I think probably the one that springs to mind is we went to a fairly late model Volkswagen, and there was a pet in the back of the car. 2 patrols arrived, myself and a colleague, and we couldn't gain entry to it. It had deadlock systems on it, so we just had to break the window.
And everyone's trained specifically to keep an eye out for this kind of thing, aren't they?
Yeah, from our contact centre through our dispatch team to the patrols, we've got robust procedures. So, yeah, everybody's on the same page. We know what we're doing. And that first question is, is it an emergency? If so, call emergency services, because we're not an emergency service. We're just a roadside assistance. We're not allowed to break the law in terms of getting to the event. If you're an RAC member, you might immediately think, call the RAC. I think I've been to shopping centres where passers-by have said, look, call the RAC, they'll get into the car for you.
Warren, what should people do to try and keep their brain on track? I know you've already touched on that, but what specific routines should they carry out?
There's a few suggestions. Again, what I was saying about having that opportunity just at some point in the morning just to talk through what your plans are for the day, what your challenges are, what's stressing you out with your partner or a family member, that actually might help you be a little bit more aware of what your priorities are, what you're doing, what the journey into work involves, etc. So that's more at a kind of a high level. Then there's very simple practical things like for rear-facing car seats to have that mirror there so you can see the child. And then there have certainly been people that have used other techniques like putting their wallet or even one of their shoes next to the car seat, so you kind of have to go there before you leave the car. So there's kind of simple but probably quite effective things that people can do as well.
So you could almost put a soft toy next to your bag or something. So
another reminder
before,
So it's all about something being in your environment that you can notice and act. What I am aware of is that combination of factors of having multiple things to manage, this background of real routines that you've kind of built up and have become automatic, and then the stress, lack of sleep, and potentially less opportunities to kind of talk through and share what's stressing you out with other people. All of that kind of compounds to be less likely to remember some things that are important to you. And that can be different for different people, but obviously in this case it's about a child or a dog in the car, but it's far more common than anyone thinks, and it's the serious cases or the ones where people are alerting the services that we're aware of. So that's the kind of profile. It's this combination of factors.
I imagine it would be really hard to get specific and accurate data because not many people would probably own up to the fact that they would have left their child or their dog for, you know what I mean? It's something that people would find hard admitting to, I think.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, they've got some data on this, which has actually made the researchers realise how common it is. So I think if research is conducted in a really accessible and ethical manner, people take part, people share things. So I think we do have some of that understanding, and that's why we know how common it is. But I think what we don't understand is for any individual how all these factors combine together.
I was really interested to see that 18 adults managed to lock themselves inside their car. That's quite an interesting statistic, don't you think?
One of the ones that I went to in particular was an older vehicle, and one of the mechanisms had actually broken on the vehicle, so that's why it had locked the occupant inside with the key, and whatever they did, they couldn't get in at all. The fire brigade were there prior to me, and they were almost going to smash a window. And when they saw me rock up, they said, "Oh, can you get into this?" I said, "Yeah, I should be able to." And
how did you get in?
Well, I actually managed to wedge the window open, fish the keys out, got the member to open the bonnet, and it was a case of like disconnecting a few different things to reset whatever had gone wrong, and then reconnecting it, and it righted itself basically. Then we was able to get into it. Yeah.
That was an older car, did you say? So that wasn't, So now things have changed, haven't they? So the newer cars, people are locking themselves in.
That's right.
How does that happen again?
And in fact, a colleague of mine, he went to a late model vehicle, and there was nobody locked in the vehicle, but the keys were locked in the vehicle inadvertently. And the members, first thing they said to my colleague was, "You can't lock the keys in this." He says, "Where are the keys?" "Locked in the car." And I think that was a BMW X5, so that was probably that thing in the background that had failed on it. So I think systems aren't infallible to failure, and things like that can happen.
And there are a lot of cars out there that you can physically lock yourself in.
Oh, yeah.
A car, not lock out, lock in, which is... And once again, if it's a hot day, you're in trouble, I guess.
That's correct,
you can't, if you don't have your phone.
Yeah. We actually ran a campaign a few years ago because we were seeing, quite a lot of children, babies locked in vehicles, and the campaign was keep your keys on you, physically keep them in your hand. Because a lot of parents were giving the keys for the children to hold while they did their things, and obviously what's the children
a lot of the
do?
time you just put it on the console.
Yeah, that's right.
Keep it in your pocket.
That's right. We actually did supply lanyards as well, so they could physically put them around their neck as well,
Yeah.
So it's about re-educating everybody, really, with the new technology.
Yeah, and I think if you go buy a new vehicle, the manufacturers haven't got enough time to talk you through all the systems, have they? There's that many things on a modern vehicle, and it's on you to look through the handbook, which 9 times out of 10 is about 2 or 3 inches thick nowadays, isn't it? So you can't possibly learn all those systems. They're really sort of intuitive things in the background, aren't they?
So not everybody has, the new technology in their cars. If they don't, can they get some safeguards to stop them from leaving their child or their animals in the car?
Yeah, there are some aftermarket manufacturers coming up with these systems that will detect and send either messages if there is a rear occupant that you've forgotten potentially, and they can be, like I say, retrofitted into older models of vehicle. Obviously, it's a specialist job because I think there's a lot of setting up with the sensors and things like that.
So if somebody sees a child or a dog trapped in a car, what should they do?
As a passerby, you'd be wise to call the emergency service straight away. As the RAC, we do attend these type of events even if they're not a member. So it's a service that we do offer to the general public. Regardless you're a member or not, we will go and gain entry to your vehicle. Like I say, if you're a passerby, you see a child or a dog in a car, call emergency services first, because you don't know how long that child or pet has been in that vehicle. So you don't really know the internal temperature of the car and things like that. Emergency services are going to get there much quicker than we can. They've obviously got the blue lights and the sirens.
Well, thank you both so much for sharing your insights today. That was great.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode, let us know and share it with a friend. Don't forget to hit subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next episode of RAC's Horizons podcast.